Hey, hey, hey. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Warrior Wednesdays. You know what day it is, but even more, let me back up a little bit. I had a big old close up. It is, y'all. Okay, today, hey, I see you coming in. It is Black Girl Book Day today. Black Girl Book Day because, wait a minute. I can't wait to tell y'all about both of these amazing women. Hi, everybody. Come on in. Hi, welcome to Warrior Wednesdays. I see you guys coming in. I'm so excited. I'm beyond hype today. I'm really going to act a fool because the guest that we have today, Dacia, actress, choreographer, author of The Game of Life. As you can see here, all of these posts is because she gave me my entire life. We're going to talk about everything that goes on in this book, talking about releasing the weight of the weight in life, in infertility, of all the things. Is super amazing. And before we bring Dacia on, because it's Black Girl Book Day, it has to be, because Yvonne Orji, my very good friend, her book came out yesterday, Bamboozled by Jesus. I want y'all to please get it, log on, like Amazon, the whole thing, get the audiobook. Like, she's so amazing. She's just the truth, and the book is the truth. These are two beautiful Black women, Christian women, y'all, praying women, y'all, that are authors and have books that are out there to bless us. Shout out to Mama Sue with the Warrior Wednesday sweatshirt, the merch. I haven't gotten the merch yet, y'all. I'm out there trying to make a fertility movie for the people, but I haven't gotten the merch yet. But I am going to bring on my guest to Warrior Wednesdays, y'all's guest to Warrior Wednesdays, Miss Dacia James Lewis, the author of The Game of Life, fertility advocate. She is a choreographer, like a celebrity choreographer. She is an actress. She was in Genius, the Aretha story, I think Stompin', Footloose. The girl is in the business of all things, and she has a fertility journey to share with us and a whole book about. Oh, thank you for being here. Phenomenally Autistic is in the building. Dacia!
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How are you?
Yo, I am so excited today to jump on here with you. Let's go.
Listen, I am hyper than hype because, well, first of all, I'm a fan. It's so good to get to know you. I have to say, Camille Gualdi, who is a friend of mine, who also has a fertility journey. She used donor eggs to conceive her beautiful baby boy. Introduced you in the DM. You know, but in the DMs ain't just about dating. Sometimes it's about fertility warriors getting together to know each other. And so we met, we spoke on the phone, and then I did my research, and then I read this thing. You see all of these posts? We got a lot. we got a lot to talk about. So welcome. I can see We Can Wear White in the building. Hey, you guys, everybody that's joining in, we got a whole crew. You know, we're gonna post this after. Go on the Warrior Wednesday website, so everybody will be able to watch in infinity to come. But let's get started, Miss Dacia.
Yo,
Go ahead.
can you hear me well? You're a little low on my end.
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Okay.
Let me see. If I'm low on your end, okay, okay, let me tell you what might be the problem. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, it's going in and out just a little bit.
Okay, hold on. Let me do something. Is this better?
Yes, girl. That's it.
Y'all, let me tell you something. Okay, so there might be a delay when we press the replay of this, of my mouth. I washed my AirPods in the laundry. Don't shame me, y'all. And I've been trying to make an appointment with Apple for the longest time to get it redone. But I was trying to act like the devil was gonna not show up in my AirPod today. And he did. That's okay, but the people need to hear this and you need to hear this. So that's all right. As long as you can hear me, that's better. Princess Warrior says it's better. Well, you know,
So much better.
okay. As long
So
as
much
it's so much better, that's all that matters. All right, I got to get into this whole thing with you. But first, I want to start by talking about a little bit about the beginning of your journey to motherhood. Because as I read in the book, it wasn't, we all think we're going to get married, find love, find marriage, have the baby. But even after you found the love and found the marriage, you're a career woman, right? So you
Yeah.
weren't instantly like ready to go ahead and fill that tummy with a child. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, especially when you work in the entertainment industry, there is this imprint, in your mind, or this vision that you have of what your pinnacle of your career is, right? You see yourself forward in motion. And what I call is your barometer for success is constantly changing. Like you get to a place and you think you've arrived, but then it moves. You're like, nah, I got to do this. I got to do this. And so for me, it was like, there was no time for a pregnant pause, for lack of better words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can have that out of sight, out of mind thing in the industry. Like if you're not constantly, in front of people, networking and things like that, you feel like nobody's checking for you, but that's not necessarily the case. But for me, I just was in love with what it is that I wanted to do and felt like there was no time to
Mm.
have that pause, right? And so as we continue to move and move and move forward, if it wasn't for my husband just kind of being like, oh, I think I want some children, I probably would have kept going and going and going.
And you know what? And I think that that's so relatable, whether you're in the entertainment industry or just in another industry or something that you really love to do. I think that that really has something to do with it. When you find your purpose and you find your passion, you want to really invest the time and the energy, and you want to soak it all in, right? And so I think it's
Absolutely.
very relatable, especially to women, to want to be able to take that time in their life to form a career, to get good at it, to make those decisions and wait for later for the baby. So I
Right.
completely get that, and I'm sure a lot of women on here get that. And the other thing, so when you said your husband was starting to have a little bit of the itch because you have a goddaughter,
Yes.
and your little goddaughter showed up, and you could see it in his face. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct? You could see in his face that he might be
In his face,
ready.
it was like the bug hopped on him, but I had the vaccine, right? I could see him, just he was coming home earlier. Like I got to get home because she stayed for the week during like the summertime. And I mean, he done came home. What we cooking? What's on the menu for her? Let's go to the park. Let's do these things. And I was like, he is so excited. Like, okay, I know that we're great people in general when it comes down to kids. Like we work in the youth ministry. We love kids. We love literally standing in the gap and bridging the gap for the next generation. And so we have a plethora of godchildren, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started to see the itch. And as I watched him, I was like, oh, I might need to take a step back because there's two people in this marriage, right? So I might need to take a step back and see, okay, why is it that I'm really not ready? And I thought it was selfish. It was clearly selfish on my behalf. And that's just a conversation that I had with God. Like, yeah, you're being selfish in terms of your career and kind of holding it dear to your heart without taking into consideration what your husband could be wanting or the timeline for your husband, because the timeline was never discussed
The
prior to.
timeline was never discussed. You know what? Okay, I want to take this little bit of a piece because when you said you could be selfish and you had to have that conversation with yourself, for a single woman like me, and for the other single women that might be watching here, for me, the selfishness was absolutely okay because
Mm.
I am only taking care of me. So when you say the thing about timeline, it's really interesting how God will move in a way where your husband became kind of the catalyst for the clock, so to speak. And for
Right.
sometimes for women like me, and I'll just speak for myself, what it became for me was getting out of a relationship, wanting to continue my years as an actress and writer and doing my thing, and realizing I gave away my best
Mm,
baby making years to the wrong guy. I gave away my best baby making years to pursuing
yes.
a career because the reality was nobody has really taught us how our bodies work.
Ding, ding,
And
ding.
they did not talk about follicles. They did not talk about them going away. They didn't talk about, So as the years added on, you just kind of thought, well, it'll happen when it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you get to a place where you realize I got to make a decision whether I'm
Right.
partnered or whether I'm single if I want to have children later, or if I don't even know yet if I want to have children later. There comes a time where God speaks, or he will send a signal
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you need to figure out what you're going to do. So for you, it was your husband looking at you that way. And then
Mm-hmm.
I read in the book that you talked about um, that God spoke to you about getting off of birth control.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, because what I loved about it was that, and it goes along with the selfish piece you just said, was about releasing control, right?
Yep.
Because that's a very hard thing for anybody to do, but it's especially hard for me to do. Okay. It's very, very hard. But talk to me a little bit about that call on getting off of birth control. What was that?
Yeah, I remember, really being in prayer one day, and I was mad at God when I heard that. Like, what you mean? Because it is full surrender, right? Now I'm in a marriage now, right? But I want to control when it is that I have a child. And I was like, no, you can't be telling that to me, Lord. Like, we really not. And there was no download in terms of like health or, get off it. It was like, no, it's a part of me moving you into full surrendering to my plan and to my purpose that I have for not only you, but you and your husband. So it was an act of faith, not necessarily like when you do this, you'll conceive. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I also want to go along with that, because I want to ask you a question, because I think a lot of people can get something from this. I know I can. So I'm selfishly going to ask this question, which is, how do you hear from God, Dacia? How do you know the difference between this is God speaking to me, or this is me making something up in my head, or I just looked at my husband and and maybe he didn't really mean that? How do
Right.
you hear? Because you talk later about calling Morgan because you wanted some confirmation, and I want to go there. But how does God download to you?
Yeah, my constant prayer is speak, Lord, your servant hears. Like, I want to constantly be in a place where I hear God, like I hear the voice of the Lord. And I believe that was Samuel, right? Just really like God, I want to know more and more and more, but I need to tune my ear, or really teach my ear how to hear from you. And so I believe that my relationship, my constant fellowship with God has allowed me to hear. And it's that inner being. Some people say it's happenstance. Some people say, it's a coincidence. There aren't those for me. I believe it is my Holy Spirit that is within me. So as I was in prayer, I always take what downloads in my spirit and I compare it against the word of God. And what came up in my spirit then was, trust in me with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct my path. And so the control was the lean not to your own understanding part. And that was the ding, ding, ding. Oh, that's the control thing right there. So that's how I hear. I always take what downloads in my spirit and then I go check it with the word of God. Because if the word of God, which as a Christian, as a believer, that's for me in my house, right? And so I go
Hey,
to the
say it.
word. Right? You know what I mean? I go to the word. And sometimes it's those moments where you just flip the Bible open and it'd be right there in your face. You'd be like, God, you were talking to me.
You,
God dang it. That's it. God dang.
yes, yes.
And those moments, that's how I can tell when I get the downloads. But I do believe that is connected to your fellowship with God. And my barometer is Proverbs 20:21. In all her ways are pleasant ways, and her paths are paths of peace. And her is wisdom. And God is the God of wisdom. So if it's peace, that's where I'm going to go. If it's chaos, that means God's not in it for me, because God is not a God of anxiety. God is not a God of chaos. He's a
Okay,
God
I
of
need
peace.
you to just say it again. I want everybody to like put your ear like really close to your AirPod or to your whatever. And I want, Dacia, I just want you to say it again, because this is a blessing that goes beyond infertility and what we do here on Warrior Wednesdays. This is just a blessing of life. Can you please just repeat that part about when it is peaceful, it is
Yeah.
God. When it is chaos, it is not.
Right. So the word of God tells us, again, I can only speak from a believer standpoint, right? Is that God is wisdom and knowledge. And when I found that scripture, which is Proverbs 20 and 21, it's talking about wisdom. And it
Mm-hmm.
says that in all her ways are pleasant ways, and her paths are paths of peace, which means that peace is God. If it's pleasant and if it's peaceful, then you move in it. If there's chaos and if there's anxiety, halt on it and wait to get the download on how to move, because God says that he is a God of peace, not of chaos. And so that is how I use my barometer on if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling like, you know what I mean, anxiety can kick in, then I step back and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, where's my peace?
Mm-hmm.
Well, fine, go back to my peace and then only move in my peace.
Only move in your peace. And I'm so glad you said that, because when I froze my eggs after that relationship and the door closed for the last time, I heard God say, go freeze your eggs. And my prayer to him was, God, if this is you, it will flow. It will flow easily. And I think that was on a Wednesday. No, it was on a Sunday. And I called my gynecologist, and then I got the referral for the fertility specialist. And by that Wednesday, I was in that office getting a fertility diagnostic test, ultrasound, blood test, the whole thing.
Right.
They told me I had to be on my period, and I happened to be on my period. And I was like, oh, this is God, because it is flowing. It is flowing.
Yes,
Now,
now.
and with that flow, so sometimes we need confirmation, right?
Mhm.
Now, I'm the Lord's biggest overthinker. He knows that. He made me. I'm his daughter. So he has to tell me things a couple of times
Yeah.
for, because sometimes my mind, put on the helmet of salvation. My mind can sometimes play tricks on me, even though God is clear. And he's like, let me really give it to you. And so you needed a confirmation about whether or not going off of birth control, the control, was what God was saying. And so you
Mhm.
called a friend of yours. So tell us a little bit about that phone call and telling Morgan what was up, because that was a faithful friend, somebody that you knew that would tell you the truth,
Yeah.
that prays with you, that's a prayer warrior. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. And we should all have those people where we can, that can be our sounding board, right? To make sure, am I tripping, girl? And sometimes your confirmation lies in God speaking the same thing to someone else, right? And so when I called my friend Morgan, I'm like, look, this download came and this just don't even sound right. The Holy Spirit was like, girl, get off birth control. And it was just crickets. And usually she is talking down low. Let me tell you what that, oh, yes, I feel it in my shana. Let me go. Like she'll go, right? And it was silence. And I was like, hello? Hello? And
You
she's
there?
like, girl, right? You hear? She was like, girl. Now, you know when you hear that girl,
Right. You like, she about to drop something. You like, oh shoot, what did I start up now?
she was like, girl, that's for me. The Lord has been saying the same thing about me. I've been selfish in my career. My husband wants kids. I was like, oh, Jesus, it's a confirmation. Because in the word, it's barely, barely. When you see that barely, barely, I say unto you, that's like, pay attention, pay attention. I need you to pay attention. And so for her, I wasn't expecting that, but it was confirmation that there was something about the relinquishing control. And she said, godly, she's like, thank you for calling me, because you've now confirmed that that is something that I need to do as well. So we made a pact that day to both stop our methods of birth control, because we had different methods.
Okay. Okay. I hope that y'all heard that, because first of all, that's a beautiful thing. Thank God that you got the download, that you knew within your own mind. Let me get some confirmation, because God spoke to both of you about the same thing in a different way, knowing y'all two was going to talk.
Right.
Knowing that y'all two was going to talk and you guys were going to help each other to understand confirmation. Because the thing is, when something is confirmed in your spirit, then you really you kind of give yourself the permission to go forward at that point. So
Mm-hmm,
y'all made
mm-hmm.
a pact, and I love that. It's like it's co-signing, where two or more are gathered in his name, there shall he be also.
Preach.
And so when you are able to co-sign with someone, with a praying friend, with a praying partner, y'all move forward into getting off of birth control and then seeing about getting pregnant, right?
Right.
So it took Morgan
2
two
months.
2 months, y'all. It took Morgan 2 months. And what happened with Dacia?
I think we didn't revisit the conversation until 2 years later, because we still hadn't conceived.
Everybody
Yeah.
take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah, it was painful. It was painful.
It's very painful. It's very painful. And I think the thing that we really need to unpack in this layer of infertility is loving your friends, being
Hmm.
around your family and loved ones and friends. And you were walking side by side with somebody. Y'all was supposed to be getting pregnant together, have the kids together, play dates together. I'm sure all of those things were in your head. And then when she gets pregnant, you're happy for your friend, of course.
Right.
But there is that trigger of, what about me?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
told
And
me this with her, and it's 2 years
2 years.
and no
It,
baby.
it made me question whether that was for me or was that just for her.
Of course.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, okay, well, I thought that was my word, but it didn't manifest in the timeline that, I thought, and it was at that moment as I started to see, because, you got your homegirl that's still rooting you on. Girl, next month, next month, girl, do a handstand this month. It's going to happen,
It's going
the tips and the tricks. And then even her encouragement, it started to become painful. It started to be like, okay, I get it. But every time it's like I'm putting my hope out there, my expectation, it grieves me every time it does not happen.
Mm-hmm. And
So
those
I need,
triggers are real.
they're real.
They are real. And I just want everybody here watching to know you're not alone in that trigger moment, because sometimes we feel like we got to be strong for everybody around us, and we have to suppress what we're really feeling in that moment, or what's really bothering us, and not take care of our own soul and our own spirit. But you almost feel like, God, did you forget me?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
forget me? While you have to celebrate Morgan and her journey.
Yeah.
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 And you don't want to be around it. And somebody just said that. That's so funny. You don't want to be around it to protect yourself and to protect them, right? Because it then starts to get weird. I started to have friends that knew the struggle. They would be nervous on even celebrating or telling me, not because they thought that I would be jealous, because I would truly celebrate them, but they were even starting to protect me or trying to protect me, from triggers, you know what I mean? And that's hurtful as well, right? Because now you feel like you're not even a part in the celebration from your friend who is giving life,
Right.
that's difficult.
But you have to take care of yourself. So it is really like about finding the balance. And the person said, that's real. You don't even want to be around the encouraging folks. That's Nichelle Polston. She's a board member at Resolve, y'all, which is the National Infertility Association. So we
Yeah.
praise her for being here. And also she started Her Normal, which is a wonderful blog site that you guys need to check
Love it.
out. So now we go through, okay, so we're 2 years and we're no baby. And now we
Mhm.
start to figure out, what's up. Why is there a baby? So tell us a little bit about the process of going to get some tests.
Right. So the interesting part is that it's like you said, we don't have enough information that tells us, because, you know, technically they diagnose you with infertility after a year of trying to conceive, right? And I think the other part is they call it a disease. Who wants to be associated with a disease? Just know what I mean? And so I think that for me, I started to say, okay, it's something wrong with me. I took it on. For some reason, as a woman, I don't know. We take it on, and I thought about it maybe because it's the Bible, because they always like, and Sarah was barren and Hannah was barren. So they never really talk about the men being barren in the Bible. So for some reason, we get the scarlet letter A. We take on the shame. We take on
Wait a
the
minute,
weight.
JC. I have to only interrupt you because I have never thought about it that way.
There's
I
only
have
one
never,
time that I know of when he said, and it's in the New Testament, when he talks about Abraham not being able to conceive. But before that, it talks about the woman being barren consistently.
pause. because
Your face.
No, because your faith, because we always wonder why. Because here's the truth, y'all. for a man to go get a semen analysis done is about like $150 or something, and it's the easiest test ever. Actually, it's a pleasurable test because he gets to make a couple deposits, right? And so it should be the first step to the thing. Our test, though, as women, HSGs and all the things, are so much more expensive. They're so much more time consuming and painful, even emotional. And what you just said is so profoundly accurate that we automatically take on the burden. We automatically say, it must be me. So you went on ahead and started getting all the tests done. And did you get the HSG test done?
Yeah.
So you got the HSD. For those that don't know, that's when they put a dye, an iodine-based dye in your cervix to check to make sure everything's working right. The fallopian tubes are clear, and that's not a comfortable test, y'all.
Oh God.
Tell them about it.
Let me tell you something. I was on that table. Look, the nurse, she gave me her hand. Okay. I think I almost squeezed the little bones out of her hand, right? It is painful. You know, it's a really, really bad, consistent cramp. If you think about your cycle cramps, it is a very painful, and it's like a punch to the gut, okay, for a suspended period of time, okay? Not the most comfortable at all. And carrying that weight, right? Leading up to it, WEIGHT, right? Of going in already assuming that it's me. And then you have the weight of now resentment can start kicking in because you're going through all of these tests by yourself, by yourself, And for me, I think women, we tend to be a little bit more proactive anyways. You know what I mean? Like, guys might be a little bit more reluctant to go to the doctor anyway. So I was like, okay, well, what I need to do? She's like, you're going to take this. Okay, cool. Let me get it done. I just got it all done and bared through it. Right. And I think for those that might not know, like, I didn't even know what the heck an HSG was.
Nobody knows unless you are put in a position that you have to get one. And I mean, and that's the thing, is that we need to be proactive about our fertility health, get our AMH, our FSH levels checked, because those tests should be the tests that are leading to the last resort, meaning, you know what I mean? Like, the semen analysis has already been done. We know what your AMH levels are, and those should come after a lot of things are already eliminated, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't even know what that was. And here you have to go through this test, and the test comes out and says,
you good.
Everybody pause. Everybody pause. So the test comes and it says, you good. The dye flowed through the fallopian tubes.
Yep. Clear as day.
Clear as day. The cervix is looking cute, right? Everything is doing what it's supposed to do. And then they basically tell you, go home and do some marital sheet dancing and get you pregnant. And you still like, but it's been 2 years, but still, let's get you pregnant. Right. And then what happens?
So my doctor at the time, after I got the last test, and then, we had a suspended period of time, and then my annual came up. So we're probably like in year 3 or even 4. I'm not for sure. So my annual came, so my annual came up, and my doctor was like, so I'm gonna write this referral for you, for your husband, to get a semen analysis test, because all of your tests have come by clear. So I can only assume that it is possibly your husband, that there might be something going on with. I'm thinking, okay, cool, that's easy, Saints.
Hey, Saints, we're just gonna go home. We're gonna tell Bae, you gotta get a test done. And it didn't go as you thought. And I want you to explain, but y'all, just so you know, The Game of Life, go on Amazon and get this book. And as you see what you've done so magically here, just to, go to the book for a second, is that you have broken up the chapters with names of games that we play, y'all, like tug of war and different things like that. But also there are journal entries, real journal entries, from your life as you were going through this season. And when you were telling your husband, you know, bet you got to go get your semen checked and look like I'm okay over here. I was reading journal entry number 8, where Dacia writes, well, that didn't go as planned. I would have come in here and and prayed beforehand had I know that he was going, I don't have my glasses on, that he was going to be a puffed up, what did you say? Butthead?
Oh, butthead, yes.
And then you go on to say, let me borrow a pen so I can pop his ego real quick. Must I remind him I'm perfectly fine? It's his turn to get checked. Duh. So tell us what didn't go as planned.
Well, I think it can be difficult for men to receive that type of information, or even the possibility of it can come off emasculating, right? And so my husband, who is what we would consider a perfectly healthy young black man that is fit, he works out, he eats pretty well. And so his response was, oh, I ain't out here shooting blanks. Like that ain't what I do. I'm good.
Right. Exactly. And the women take on the burden, and the men don't even think that there's a blank happening, right? And so let me ask you, just in case there's people watching here, would you suggest, if a couple, that somebody that has sperm and somebody that has eggs are trying to have a baby together and it's not happening yet, would you suggest to that couple, to those people, get the semen analysis first? Is that something that you would suggest they do?
Absolutely. Even to the point where when you are preparing to get married, in your betrothment period, in your engagement period, I would personally recommend that you go ahead and get those checked.
Y'all,
Prior to.
if y'all don't write that down in your journal tonight, because that is beautiful, that even in your engagement period, that y'all as a couple decide to go ahead and get all of the things checked if you're planning on having children together.
Yes.
I love that.
So ahead of time how your reserve is, how your egg reserve is, ahead of time if he might be dealing with any type of genetic things that might be hindering his swimmers, ahead of time. So then you're not shocked. You're not shocked by, you can go and you can actually plan, okay, so this is me and this, and then you can go a holistic route. You have so many more options when you have the knowledge and the information, and it doesn't put you in a state of shock, when you're like, for me, 2 or 3 years in, and you're like, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait,
right.
What?
Because the thing is, we all make assumptions. We all believe nothing is going to be a problem until we get to a point where there's a problem. So I even have had friends that are men. I won't say who because they actors and you probably know them too. But that I'll try to hook them up with somebody. Oh, she would be great for you. Oh, but she might be. I don't think she wants to have kids. She might. Have you got? She's a little older. She might not be able. Have you got your sperm checked out? And they never have, and they've never even thought about it. And to be quite honest, they don't think that they have to, like you said.
Yeah.
So we all know that there are fragility in the ego of men and women, but we do know to lead with empathy. But I think that that's a great that's some great piece of advice that you gave about even in the betrothment period to talk about this and think about this. So he eventually does go get checked.
He does. He has a come to Jesus moment.
He had a come to Jesus moment. Tell us. And then what happened?
Literally, there was this one day, because he also is a prayer warrior, and there's sometimes where you have to step back and allow God to intervene to protect your marriage and even the covering of my marriage. So we can tend to be a little bit agitated or aggravated, in those, in situations like this. But because it's such a sensitive situation, what the Holy Spirit was teaching me is grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grace. Mm-hmm. Because it was doing something to him, and it became a Job situation. The very thing I feared has happened to me. Mm-hmm. So he was dealing with the fear of it actually being true, that it is him. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, the wait for me, I was dealing with resentment versus grace, because the longer he was getting it together, the more frustrated I was getting. Mm-hmm. And so God was teaching me grace. in
The
this area.
the longer it was taking him to get there, to get it together in his mind and his spirit to do the thing, the more frustrated you were getting. So it was teaching you grace for your partner, grace for the situation, and just grace moving forward. I love it. And so it came to pass that it was male factor
Yeah.
infertility.
Yeah.
And what I love now is that he's out here in these fertility streets with you. If y'all have not followed Dacia, you need to go ahead and follow her right now, because they be doing the cutest videos together on their journey. And I love the fact, because it is so encouraging for men, all men, and specifically Black men, when we see the vulnerability, the transparency, the rawness, the tears, and the joy, and the
Yeah.
way to make things fun and have laughter. Because you guys, this has truly become, something that you guys as a team have put some things out. So you guys go ahead and follow this Dacia right now, because you have it there. So now we're in year 4-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what starts to happen after you find out what the issue is? Was he then put on medication? What was the prognosis and the process after that?
Yeah, so my husband took a holistic route first, right? So they adjusted some vitamins, some things for his blood type, because you can also get like your blood type taken, or find out what your blood type is, and then see where there could be a deficiency in your body. So we went that route first. And they had diagnosed my husband with a varicocele vein. And that is where there can be a hindrance in the actual veins in the scrotum area that starts to like choke your sperm. So choke the sperm, so it won't get to this place that it's supposed to get. It doesn't even have the ability the motility to get to, your uterus, right? And that can be questionable as well, because there is no way to fully diagnose varicocele vein, right? It is an assumption based upon what they see when they do the ultrasound for the male. So it's like, oh, we think that it can be a varicocele vein. So that was the most frustrating part, because they didn't really know.
They didn't really know. So now, were they calling it unexplained infertility?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They called it unexplained infertility. And the interesting part about this particular journey is that another year has passed as we process whether this surgery, because the success rate even after surgery was so low, right? You still don't know the probability, the actual accurate probability. It can be anywhere from 0 to 50%. And in most cases, it's on the low end, right? And the varicocele vein can return. So so it becomes this floating out in the air of, we'll try it,
Right.
we'll try it. And my husband was a trooper. He did go along with the varicocele vein. And on the other side of it, still unexplained. Still unexplained.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, because I have several friends that have been diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And it feels, I can't speak for them, but it when there doesn't seem to be a solution to a problem that is not identified, it must feel a little bit like, well, then where do I go? How do I move forward when you can't pinpoint something? Then I can't get the solution to it. Because at least if we know what something is, we know what our options are, we know how to do it, that kind of thing. But tell me a little bit about, from a faith perspective.
Yeah.
From a faith perspective, a little bit about the prayers, the meditations, the thoughts, the conversations, as you journey through unexplained infertility from a faith
Yeah.
perspective.
That's where all the weights started. WEIGHTS started to mount up. Because I was pressing in almost every day on like James 1 and 5. If you need wisdom, ask for it, and I will give it to you ungrudgingly. So I felt like I was tugging on a God that wasn't responding. Like there was no insight. There was no direction that I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I warred with, as a believer, like Moses, I'm not going unless you go with me. So
Right.
I need for you to show me, but feeling like there was nothing being exposed or illuminated to me in terms of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it got to the point where I was on my last leg into agnosticism, like really starting to question if God was even real and if he cared about me.
Okay, I need to, let me see if I can find my right tab here, because let me tell you something, y'all. Y'all have to, where are my glasses? Y'all have to get this book, because you will find yourself, your sister, your friend, your coworker in the pages of this. Because what resonated with me so profoundly is how you, Dacia is very witty, y'all. She's very funny in this book, but very unapologetic with your conversations with God. And there is a lot of places in here in your journal entries where Dacia keeps it all the way real with the Lord and does not hold back her anger, her frustration, the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. Just to read a little bit, you know, and I love the way you didn't cuss, but you put all the little symbols in there that was a cuss chat, because she was like, you know, now wait 1 second, this just got real. Not one, not two, but three of my closest friends are all pregnant, back to back, like dominoes, 1 month apart from each other. What kind of serendipitous is this? Where's Ashton Kutcher? Bring him out right now, because I know I am being punked. Did they make a pinky promise behind my back to get pregnant at the same time? No, of course not. That's impossible, because they all lie in different states. They all live in different states and have no relationship with each other outside of referring them in conversation. So what's really going on? That just seems cruel, God.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing, this is the part that gets me. Y'all, I have my glasses. There's somewhere here. I don't want to leave the screen, but so don't, I'm aging myself here. But this is what really I wanted to see, that I want y'all to hear. This just seems cruel, God. I've been doing everything I know to do. Praying, reading, decreeing, declaring, and believing. I guess you are just not answering my calls. Be fruitful and multiply. That's what your word says, right? Evidently, this only applies to certain saints.
Woo! Girl, I hate to give my own self chills, but
Didn't you write this book, girl? Did you not write this book,
I
girl?
wrote that book.
Did you not? Because listen, I have told off the Lord. I have let him know I am pissed. This is not fair. I'm out here in
Yeah,
these fertility streets doing your work, and you still making me wait. And I want to talk about the wait, but can you just share with us
yeah,
your truth about when you're angry, when you're frustrated, not with
yeah,
yourself, not with your husband, not with your friends that are pregnant, but with your Father up above. Talk to
yeah.
us about that space in your life, and talk to us about how you talk to him and why.
I feel like religion has taught us this certain way that we need to come to God, right? But he says, come as you are, like literally come as you are. And I was hurt and offended because I felt like I'm out here doing the work of the Lord, right? And all I had at that moment was my truth.
Right.
And I was like, oh, no, you about to listen to my truth, you know? And the more I released it, the more I felt his presence. That's the crazy part.
Ooh.
And this, as believers, I think that our most authentic selves, that's how God wants us to come to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that he eats popcorn and laugh at us while we acting a fool. You know what I mean? I'll be throwing stuff that don't break, paper, clothes, things like that.
Stuff that don't break. I love it.
you know, But I think that when you get into that place, you open room for him to come in, because it is not routine. It is not something that you have conjured up in your head as how you have to present yourself to God. No, 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 no. I'm pissed off at you. And I got to be honest with you. I'm this close to no longer believing that you even exist. But I've seen you before, right? Because you, in these other, we compartmentalize. I've seen you before. I've seen you come through. But now I feel like you're just being me in a test that is just my test, you know? And I will say this. The thing, I call it the spiritual autopsy, is I started to see myself being an unbelieving believer. That's what I called it. An unbelieving believer. It's like I could walk it or I could talk it, but I couldn't do both at the same time. I could pray you into your blessing, into your calling, and walk off and not even believe that that would even happen for you. Literally.
Wait a minute, because that is so real. Because you said it's a spiritual autopsy. Is that what you said? Because that feels like, to me, like the spiritual depletion, the exhaustion of trying to find the mustard seed. Like, I am grappling, I am on the ground, I am in the grass, I am on my hands and my knees looking for this daggone thing. And you said it was here and I can't find it. And even though I can speak your word to somebody else that might need it, when I hang up the phone, I'm really sucking my teeth like, whatever. When I tell you I have been there. I have visited there. And I'm so glad that you said that. I'm so glad that you write things like that in the game of life, because we feel so less alone knowing that our journey gonna be like this, y'all. It's gonna be like this. We're looking for this cruising altitude all of the time, and that would be nice if the ride was smooth, but that's not life. That's not life. But knowing in the turbulence that there's somebody to the right or the left that you can grab their hand and they feel that turbulence too, makes that ride still possible. You still gonna land that plane. And so I love that you are so honest about that. And even about becoming a non-believer, I want you to speak a little bit about that, or even the, I don't know if I want to call it the temptation to become a non-believer, because I think that our anger is really masking hurt and pain and sadness and feeling unseen. And that's really what the anger is about. It's a defense mechanism, right? So when you got underneath that anger and the sadness said, maybe you shouldn't believe at all. Like, how was that for you? Because now we know you've come back to yourself. But how was that for you in your spirit?
The reality of seeing, so you also got to process with me as I'm writing the book. It's difficult to go back and read those journal entries, because God had moved me from that place. But while I was sitting in it, I call it an unbelieving believer because for some reason, all I had was Mark 9:23, right? And that, I think, is because we write the word on our hearts, and that's, Lord, I believe, please help my unbelief. I remember that scripture, and that's really all I had to give at that time. And that was out of routine. That was out of routine. That was out of religion. But God was even honoring that word that I was saying. Lord, I believe, please help my unbelief. Very casual, very over it, but that word was planting seed that I didn't know. But coming out of that, I'll be honest with you, it's that scripture, hope deferred makes the heart sick. It literally makes the heart sick. This is where depression comes in. This is where anxiety comes in. This is where discouragement, mounting disappointments can put you in a place where you're this close to hopelessness. Now, we don't want to get to hopelessness, because hopelessness is where the enemy can come in and snatch you from the faith completely, right? And so I think God was able to allow me to see myself getting a thread from completely giving up in that moment, and then kicked in, now I'll help you. Because you surrender at that moment, releasing it at that moment. It took me to get to the point, to that rock bottom, right? And I remember that conversation in my prayer time. I had said, Lord, I believe, please help my unbelief. And this dropped in my spirit. I will never forget. And he said, if I never give you a child, will you still serve me? Couldn't answer it. Tears just, what? And let's process that for a second. If I never give you a husband, if I never give you a child, if I never heal your parents, if I never give you that breakthrough or that dream job, just think about that for a second. If God never gives you the thing, your most intimate, significant heart's desire, can you still posture yourself in a place to serve him? I couldn't answer the question.
Listen, I don't know if I can answer. Y'all see? Look what Dacia done did. That is so real. That is because we want to say yes. We want to say that as a presentation of ourselves, as a better version of us in the moment. Yes. What I love about what you just said was how real and true you stayed to you, because the reality is God is right on in you anyway. So even in the asking of the question, he already knew where you were. And he already knew that there was still work to do before you were able to answer it. So by saying even to yourself, I don't know if I can answer that question, that is the answer.
Yeah.
We still got work to do.
Right. And he knows that. He wanted me to know that. I need for you to see where you at, because you're acting like you're here. There's this facade that we put on as believers, as religious people, like we can. But he's like, yeah, let me flip this mirror towards yourself so you can truly see that you don't trust me. Simple as that. It's difficult to see yourself, that you don't trust me. You don't trust that I have your best interest in mind. But let me remind you that you said yes to me when you were younger, but yes requires something of you.
Faith without works is dead.
Dead. But you don't want to go through that part.
You don't want to go through that part. So here you are going through that part, right? In the midst of that. And how did you regain your trust? What was a little bit of the journey of the trust? Because you have regained it, because I'm holding this book in my hand.
Right.
I'm holding this book in my hand. I'm holding this testimony that you are willing to share with the entire world about your journey of the weight, y'all. The WEIGHT, of the weight. And then I want to talk about the weight after that. And I also want to talk about the Testimony Tuesdays. And I also want to talk about the friendships. Keeping everybody keeping their mouth shut. So you listen, because there's so much. But how did you get to that space of learning to trust again? I know it's step by step, but how did you get?
A couple of things happened. I went back to me, like what fulfills my heart and my purpose. And that was always sewing into kids. That's why I created my mentorship program. And at that moment, when God literally showed me, I said, well, I can't fix myself. So you're going to help me fix me, like show me the areas where I need to grow. And that word selfish kept coming up. Like literally, you can be very selfish. And I was like, so let me give of myself. And that's, when I created, the mentorship program that I talk about in the book, and I started to sew it into these kids. And I remember this download that when you do this, you're going to get pregnant. I remember it to the day. I'm going to do something in you as you sow into other people. You're going to get pregnant. And I was like, well, here's the journey that we're on, not really believing it, right? Until it happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, you told me this, right? So now you get to this point where now you've surrendered and say, okay, well, I'm going to thrust myself in my purpose and my calling and just so into, so I'm not really thinking about what you're not doing for me, but what you are doing for me. Okay. Really staying in a place of gratitude. And I remember when I got that positive, I was in complete disbelief. But God said, I already told you this was going to happen.
Dacia, I'm not messing with you today. I cannot throw this book. I cannot. So he downloaded to you when you serve in this space, I'm going to get you pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use it for my good. And I said, okay, I'm thinking this is going to be this glorious thing, we're going to, conceive and, whatever. And then I had a miscarriage.
Okay.
And that is when I was numb.
Okay, I'm going to
Just
pause you
numb.
for a second. Y'all know what to do. Y'all know where the rainbows go. Y'all know what to do. So here at Warriors, we honor our angels and we put rainbows in the comment section. So y'all better keep it and get it here and get it here quick. And so let's go there. First and foremost, let me say I'm sorry for your loss.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we are sorry. And here come the rainbows. Mama Stu is the first rainbows that I see. That's my mama sending you love and light. So tell us about that experience. Him telling you were going to get pregnant and then miscarriage. Take us a little bit through that.
Yeah, expectation is this thing. And then I'll take it back to the religious aspect of it, right? Because I just, about 6, 7 weeks in, I started bleeding and didn't understand. I panicked. And my husband just kept speaking faith. Oh no, prayer, covering, because you want to believe that, that it's going to work out for your good in that sense. But I knew it was over. I knew there was something like God was settling something in my spirit prior to everybody else knowing what it is. And it is that peace that surpasses all understanding that I cannot explain, because what would shake most people in having this miscarriage, I was not shook at all. I was numb, but I wasn't shook.
There's a difference.
There is a difference. There is a difference. And I remember, and you guys literally get the book. I'll take you through the whole situation.
I told y'all laugh, y'all gonna cry, y'all gonna learn, y'all gonna play games, y'all gonna buy a journal. I'm telling you, get the book, y'all. You're gonna look at people in your life different. It's the truth. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just, you kind of walk through the devastating moments and the final moments, of really solidifying, and just some things where they were like, oh no, there's two in there. You still have one. Like, it's just an emotional roller coaster. And I literally had no hope for a positive outcome, because something had already told me, yes, this is over. This is over. But I told you I'm working it for my good, for my glory. Now I need for you to go back to me and let's talk about what just happened here. I was like, you think I ain't had nothing to say prior to? I sure don't have nothing to say to you now. Done.
Finished. Like, finished.
Finito. Yeah. Just done. And getting out of that spot, and literally, let me be very candid here. I can smile, I can laugh, and I can share because I'm coming from a healed place now. Right. So I just want to share that with you guys, because miscarriage it's not funny. It's no joke, but I can look back and see what God was doing with me at that time. And because I am healed and whole, I can smile about it. And that's how growth and maturity has happened over the years. So I just want to share that for anybody that has gone through a miscarriage. I pray that you get to a heal and a hold space, because at that space is when your courage becomes contagious to other people, right? And so right now, my courage in stepping out, hopefully is contagious in a sense that someone else feels comfortable stepping up and sharing their story as well. But yeah, I was numb, girl. Like, how could you?
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
how could you give me something and snatch it back like a lollipop? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I processed it differently because everybody processes miscarriages
Different.
based upon what everybody processes differently. And I didn't know this, but there was something in the biochemical miscarriage for us that I believe I was able to kind of push through it easier, if that makes sense. Because for some reason in my mind, I had to grapple with, okay, well, it didn't develop, you know, like that's how you process it. And
Mm-hmm.
I went to therapy. She's like, okay, so this is a miscarriage. I want you to understand
Right.
that this is considered a
We don't want you
miscarriage.
to disassociate from what it actually is, but yes, yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
whatever you need to process to get through it.
That's such an important statement to make, and such sound advice also, because we tend to sometimes grade ourselves in grief. We tend to sometimes give ourselves a deadline to get over something or be through something, or or feel like we should be better by now. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for you saying whatever you need, and whatever you need with whatever challenge or struggle that you're grieving, whether we are grieving the loss of a pregnancy, the loss of a parent, the loss of all the things, that whatever you need is
Mm-hmm.
your journey and is your story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how was that with your husband, and the journey of marriage, the journey of wanting a baby, and going through this for so long, having the baby, and he's faithful that it's going to be okay. You know what you know because God told you, and it's in your body too.
Mm-hmm.
How was that healing process for y'all together?
That that was a difficult season
Mm-hmm.
because my husband was ready to hop on for the next ride, right? His faith had shot through the roof. I tell you, he might have had a moment, that moment where he cried, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and something like the Energizer Bunny or regenerate. I don't know. He was on 10 for faith, like faith in God. Like, and I'm like, hope, pump them brakes. I'm not ready.
Right.
Because the very thought of hoping again in it, the very thought of hoping for another, it didn't exist for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I needed time to process what happened. I needed time for God to heal the areas and for him to still show me that he was real and he was the orchestrator of this situation, because as a sovereign God, he's going to have the final say regardless. Even if you decide to go through alternative methods, like, there's still a yes or no or a wait or a slow, and I needed time. And my husband was gracious enough. Oh, he better be, because back in the day when he didn't want to get that test, we gonna show some grace.
Right,
Okay.
right.
He was gracious enough to process it with me, and we constantly had conversations about it. And I think about a year after that, I was able to get to a place where it doesn't seem what's the word I'm looking for? Disrespect to what happened prior to.
Mm.
You're dismissing it.
That you can still honor it.
Right.
That you can
Right.
still honor it as you move forward.
Yeah.
Because two things can be true at the same time. And that's actually when we are our healthiest, right? Where
Right.
we can literally say, I'm, you know, I'm okay moving forward now, but I honor the fact that hope is hard, because it is. And we don't talk about that enough. We do not talk about the fact that having hope and the infertility. I mean, you and I are in the industry where you got to hope about everything because you get denied everything every single
Rejection is
day.
real.
They be like, you ain't get it. Oh, okay. Answer the phone again. You ain't get it. You ain't get it. You ain't get it.
You
So
better
there's a
preach.
part.
You better preach.
Okay. So there's a part of that we become very, very used to. But don't you dare talk about that when it comes to this, when it
Right.
comes to fertility. I'm not going to get used to that. So we have to honor the fact that hope is hard,
Mm-hmm.
and that hope doesn't require you to be perfect at it. You don't have to stand there and exclaim, I know for sure, and da 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 da. If you got a little teeny, listen, because he didn't tell you you needed to have all of that. If you have a little tiny mustard seed size,
Come on, see? Yeah.
it's enough. It's
Mm-hmm.
enough. And
Mm-hmm.
you can give yourself the permission. And as you said earlier, the grace that God was teaching you with your husband, the grace to take your time to do whatever you need to do to decide, okay, I'll get back on that floor and I'll look for the mustard seed again.
Right. Goes back to that scripture I said. The thought of trying again gave me anxiety.
Yeah.
So I can only follow my peace. I'm not ready for that at this moment.
That's beautiful. It's brilliant. It's so helpful because sometimes we do things prior to being ready because we want to please somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
that somebody else doesn't always have to be a spouse. It could be the friends. It could be the family. It could be how parents, other people looking at you. And I love the fact that you said to follow your peace, because that's how you know whether or not you're ready for something, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
you're ready to move forward, whether or not you're ready to look at other options. That's how you know. Follow your peace, y'all. Don't rush yourself. Do not rush yourself and feel like you got to keep up with everybody else and what God is doing in their life. Comparison is the work of the devil. Don't do it to you. Now, the one thing I want to talk about
Amen.
a little bit is, because this is the game of life and this is releasing the weight when God says wait. Get Dacia's book, y'all. Let's talk about the wait. WAIT a little bit. About
Mm-hmm.
the waiting season. One of the things that you wrote here, we all have them. What? Seasons of waiting. You might not be able to identify with the despondency of waiting to conceive, but I'm sure you can relate to times when delays felt like denial. Although our waiting seasons may be different, there is one thing I think we can all agree on. The longer we wait in the wings for God to call our number, the tougher it gets to carry the load of frustration. Feeling weighty? Well, let's release the weight together. I love that. I'm still waiting in the wings. There's people
And
on this chat that are waiting on the wings.
yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about
Mm-hmm.
waiting seasons and just how long they can really be.
Woo! I've heard some testimonies, for sure, that span from 10 to 15 years. There's no way you can identify what your waiting timeline will be. It's impossible, right? We would love to have the capacity and the ability to see what that is, but if we did, it wouldn't require faith for the thing. For me, that wait, what I've learned is the heavy part of the weight is the uncomfortable feeling of, will it ever happen for you? That's the most difficult part of the weight that God was really dealing with me in. And mounting disappointments, because it's always our experiences or the experiences of people around us that we hear of that start to dismantle our level of faith. When we think about children when they're younger, it's us that's scared. Don't run out in the street. Don't touch the stove. We put that fear on them. But God has constantly tried to get me back to a childlike faith where I am fearless in everything that I do, and understanding that I can try to control it, but ultimately He is in the driver's seat.
Mm.
I am not. And that what I've learned in my waiting season is to be diligent in making my faith a daily walk. Okay. And I break that down like this. we might remember the whole Dylan Roof situation, you know, the massacre that kind of happened. It didn't kind of happen, it happened. And I heard one of the family members of one of the victims that said that they asked them, how do you forgive? You said that you've forgiven this person. And they said, forgiveness is a daily decision that I have to make. I believe that that is just the rule of thumb for all of us. Faith is a daily choice. It is something we have to wake up to every single day and say, yo, I choose to believe you no matter what I see. I choose to walk by faith and not by sight. It is a choice, right? And so for me, the most Connect 4 is the last chapter of the book that I like to share with people. And those are the things that I've learned that help me get through my waiting season.
Right.
And that's prayer, because prayer is a conversation that I have with God that moves him to action. It lets him know that I trust him. And praise being the thanksgiving and the surrendering of understanding that if he's done it before, he'll do it again. And I kind of marinate in that Lamentations 3, where, you know, we talked about this, where Jeremiah is going ham on God about all the grief and all the pain and agony that he feels. And then all of a sudden you would think that Jeremiah is crazy, because he says, but then I recall your faithfulness. And I'm like, that's what that praise is. When we recall the goodness of God, when we recall that mountaintop that unfortunately society has taught us how to reign at the top of the mountain, but then they throw us away in the valley, right? In the middle, in the thick of it, right? And right in the middle. But in order to get from mountain to mountain, we're all going to go through a valley season.
Yes.
Every single one of us. So how do we push through? Right. How do we push through? By recalling that mountaintop that we just came off of. That's the only reason that's going to give us the persistence to keep pushing forward, right? Which leads me into the perseverance. Right? Faith is a muscle that we constantly have to train, right? We move from faith to faith, from glory to glory. And so just like me and you, we can't go out here and run a marathon tomorrow if we haven't put in the work. Right. And God wants us to get to a place when we are completely trusting in him, and it's not compartmentalized. Like, I trust you with my finances because I tithe, but I don't trust you for giving me a husband because you ain't gave it to me in the past 20 years. So my faith not built up in that area. Right. And so that perseverance is that daily decision. Now, I trust you for this. Oh no, you're going to give it. I know. Give me the wisdom and the insight, the intuition, the understanding. If I need to take a route, or if I need to go to this place and my husband is there, or if I need to switch doctors and she has the answer for me. And that's when we go back to hearing, but it's also that perseverance of it being a daily decision. Like, no, God, it's me and you. And lastly, even it's the perspective of how we see things. And what God started to show me is that you're looking at this in a negative light. And he said, I want you to make that in infertility lowercase. And then I want you to capitalize the fertility, FERTIL, all of that. Full caps, because you are in a fertility journey. But if you take on the negative connotation of it, then you're going to walk in it and think that I'm not in it. But if you look at it like, no, you're in a fertility journey, then you give me the power to dismantle and move, because now you're releasing it to me, and you're speaking the word, the positive aspect, instead of mulling over what society has said this is. The shame started to go off. No, I'm in a journey. Yeah, I'm in a journey, and you've got me this far, so I'm going to recall, and then I'm believe, and then you're going to send whoever you need to send for us to get it to where it needs to be. But in the meantime, I told you I'm going to use you for my glory.
I ain't got nothing to say. Let me tell you something right now, Ray. Let me tell you something. Y'all, I told y'all. I told y'all. I told y'all. Mama Stu wrote in the comments, you need to be in a pulpit. And then she said, you better preach. And then Princess Warrior in the UK says, listen, sign me up for the book. I told y'all, infertility. Yes, y'all, infertility inside a fertility journey. And one of the things that we talk about here on Warriors is being able to celebrate the journey while we're in it. Because we have the baby showers and the first birthdays and the second birthdays, we live in a society where the celebration doesn't come until you get the thing. No. That's what we do. That's why I do this. That's why you wrote this. This whole book is a prayer.
Appreciate that.
This whole book, y'all, is a prayer. Because when you allow yourself to be used, when you allow yourself and you give yourself permission to tell your truth, tell your story unapologetically, unedited as you can, this whole book blesses somebody else's life. And therefore you are doing God's work. You cannot heal. We cannot heal unless God told you, get your computer and write this. God told me, go on IG and do this. We're in fertility, y'all.
Yes,
we are in fertility. In this moment, I celebrate you, sis. I celebrate all that you are. I celebrate all that you are doing. I celebrate the fact that even somebody, now y'all, I really want to just go back for a second, because this is, Dacia said earlier, she was at a place of almost becoming a non-believer. And she just preached y'all almost out of this live. Y'all all almost threw your phone. It's a testament to what God can do and the changes that he can create. And held on just enough to continuously hear his voice. Like I said, how do you hear from God? And if y'all don't get anything else from this, know that, you know, the sadness may come, but joy will come in the morning. Know that you can recall. You know, I said to my mom the other day, because I was going through something. And I remember when my grandfather was transitioning and we were in hospice with him and he was asleep for days. We started playing Mahalia Jackson, Precious Lord. And all of a sudden he just turned his body. I mean, days he didn't move. He turned his body, opened his eyes and said, I've come a long way. And he started to reach for heaven. And I saw God in the room. I saw him in the room. Now, my mom wasn't ready to let her dad go. So she, when his hand got too high, she grabbed that sucker and brought it right home.
Reality. Come on now.
And brought it right on back down. But when I recall the mountaintop, when I recall that I've met God, when I recall that my grandfather, as his entire body and organ systems are shutting down, had enough gratitude after days of not saying a word to say, I've come a long way.
God.
And the long way is the journey. And we're in that long way right now, y'all. We are in that long way right now. So keep going. Because when your number to go to heaven is called, I want you to be able to say, I came a long way. A long way. And that all the promises were met. Now, I just want to close off again by saying thank you. And I honor you, your truth, your journey, who you are, who you're becoming, who you will be tomorrow, a year from now, and years to come. You are anointed with something very special and very needed in this world today. I thank you personally for taking the time to talk to us. I want everybody to go right now and get The Game of Life by Dacia, because I'm telling you, you will see yourself in these pages. And I know you were blessed by her. Listen, like I said, I almost didn't say nothing because you just preached us all the way out. But I know you were blessed by her today, and you are going to continue to be blessed page by page by page. So let everybody know Miss Anointed Woman that you are, where they can find your book, all the platforms that they can follow you on. Where can they
Yeah.
find you and be obsessed with you and follow you and pray for you? Because that's what we do
Amen.
here on Warrior Wednesdays. You're gonna have a lot of DMs, girl, and it's gonna be people talking about I'm praying for you, girl. So where can we get obsessed?
I receive everything that you just said, just before we get off, and right back at you. Because, like I said, it takes courage to even be in these vulnerable and transparent arenas and areas where we say, God, you can use me even if it hurts. And I think that it is at that place where God can drop the Goshen of everything that he has for us. Everything, the windows of heaven. And so I want you to stay encouraged as well, because your walk, your light, your platform, what you're doing is contagious. And I am here because you are here, and so I bless you as well. Guys, my name is Dacia James Lewis, at Dacia James. The book is on Amazon. I did hit top 50 in my category, so I was a little crunk a couple weeks ago. I will continue to share on my platforms. I have Infertility Fridays, where I will give light, and and my website is daciajames.com as well. And I want everybody, if I could leave a note for everybody, because we all have those waiting seasons, and what the Lord showed me that book is meeting my people in the middle. Because when I started to heal, every book that I read, every devotional that I read had a happily ever after. And although we love happy endings, when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't feel good because you still feel like you're waiting. So the Lord told me, no, I want you to write those for those that are still waiting. So they closed that book. And at the end of that book, it is a prayer for you to know that I am with you. I am with you in the wait, and I still believe. And if God can take me, it'll be 10 years. My marriage on this Saturday is our anniversary.
Amen.
It'll be like 8 years in this fertility journey walk. And I'm so appreciative of it. I am so grateful that God is using me for his glory, as well as you, Kelly. And I just want to say, you guys, don't get frustrated. Wait well. Wait well. Wait well.
I'm gonna cry again. No, I ain't. Okay, wait well, y'all. Wait.
Wait well.
Wait well. I'm gonna need you to go when outside opens up. I'm gonna need you to go on a speaking tour. As beautiful as this book is, people need to meet you. I know y'all agree. People need to meet you. They need to see you. They need to hear you. And you need to be in every city, everywhere, telling people how to wait well. Because we need your anointed testimony and the lessons that you have learned along the way. I thank you. I praise your name. I will be praying for you. You are my new friend. You ain't no friend in my head no more, girl. You my new friend. You guys follow Dacia and go get this book, The Game of Life. Like she said, on Amazon, she offered to send it to me, and I told her, no, I will be purchasing my book,
That's
because
what I
Black
love.
women support Black women. So don't even front, and buy it for yourself and buy it for somebody else that needs it. Buy more than one copy and send it around to your sisters, to your friends, to your cousins, and all the things. Let's
Right.
support each other out here. So again, thank you so much for your time. Kiss your husband for us. When the world
I sure
opens
will.
up again, girl, I'm gonna come meet you in person and hug the
Come on to Atlanta. Come on.
I'm coming. Thank you so much, sis.
Bye,
We love
girl.
you. Thank you, Dacia. Y'all, Dacia James Lewis. Go get this book and go get it now. Did she not bless your life? Child, she made me cry. She made me laugh. I'm telling you, you are going to find yourself all over those pages. And like I said, get more than one copy, okay? Send it to your friends. Tell everybody about her. Tell them to follow her and to watch this live. I'm going to post it right now, and then it's going to be on the Warrior Wednesdays website. Mama Sue, thank you for the merch, for the Warrior Wednesdays merch. Sorry you guys couldn't hear me in the beginning, but you heard what you needed to hear in the end, because she certainly prayed us into a beautiful waiting season. And I vow to wait well. So thank you so much, Dacia.